Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It's the 28th of April, 2026, Taco Tuesday, as they say. And yeah, if you haven't got used to it yet, you better get used to it. And that you got to start thinking outside of the cage. Because they're liars, folks. They're liars. And guess what, media? You won't be trusted anymore. All right, welcome to the Tuesday edition of the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist, WTF with the facts. And if those facts make you exclaim WTF, well, then so be it. All right, where do we get started today? There's a lot to cover. There's so much being exposed right now. There's stuff going on in Washington, D.C. Throngs of people are screaming outside of the Supreme Court courthouse building, saying we've got to stop Beyer and Monsanto from establishing immunity from any possible damage that they may do or have already done from the spreading of glyphosate, which is, of course, in Roundup. Anyway, we'll get to that particular issue. We're also going to get to the issue of what's been going on with the suppressed medications as far as treatments are concerned for all kinds of problems, including the, shall we say, the virus that went around a few years ago. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that as well. And also just some other, little facts and, little pieces and bits of information that will help you to, shall we say, adjust your schema of the world. But right off the bat, of course, I do want to tell you that this broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. Now, I'm a very strong believer in frequency technology. I've known about it for many, many, many years. I remember Hulda Clark had come out, this is 25, maybe 30 years ago, with what she called a zapper. And it created a frequency of electronics. You would hold two copper tubes, one in each hand, and it would produce a very low voltage electrical charge through your body. And at different frequencies, it had different effects. And this is, of course, based upon Tesla technology. Frequency is everything. And it was refined by Royal Raymond Rife, and he started making Rife machines. And if you haven't heard about them, do a little search. But what's really interesting is a few years ago, a woman by the name of Linda Banber, she figured out how to take some of these frequencies and shrink them down into a wristwatch. Now, if you haven't heard about it, check it out, folks. The Wave Watch is basically a Rife machine you wear on your wrist. And the science behind it is pretty interesting. So check out our website, TheWTFReports.com. The pop-up window will take you to an area where you can educate yourself on the Wave Watch and why this is quite an interesting piece of technology that you may want to take advantage of. Anyway, that said, go to our website, TheWTFReports.com. Check out the Wave Watch and, do some business with us. Keep the lights burning, keep the bills paid. All right, right off the bat, I want to turn the clock back to the inventor of the PCR test. His name was Kary Mullis, and he didn't have any kind words to say about Anthony Fauci. And, of course, since that time, there are a lot of more people that don't have anything nice to say about Tony Fauci. But before he passed, he was doing an interview, and he said the following, okay? Listen carefully. Now, again, this is the guy who invented the PCR test. For those of you who want to censor and block and deplatform and demonetize and say, okay, well, this guy's spreading disinformation. No, it's not me saying it. This is the guy who invented the PCR test. Listen to what he had to say about Tony Fauci.
What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? These guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. He doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand medicine. And he should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on the bottom. Those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to, and they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people that pay his salary and lie directly into the camera.
You see, hear what he said. Tony Fauci has no problem with standing in front of the camera and lying to the people. Okay, go ahead. Carry on, Kary.
You can't expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans. Don't get me wrong, but basically, the vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist. I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem actually with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who do we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, If Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina, ask Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But Fauci didn't want to do it.
No, Fauci didn't want to do it. So Fauci did not want to debate Dr. Kary Mullis in regard to the efficacy or the accuracy of the PCR test. Now, why do you suppose that is? How do you suppose that works into the schema of the world? Well, Nick Fulcher, following up on that particular issue, had the following to say.
Pandemic, 2020, 2021, 86% of COVID cases confirmed by PCR were not real infections. So all of the lockdowns, all of the vaccine mandates, all of those horrible policies that destroyed our livelihoods and economy were based on a completely fraudulent metric. So this study compared PCR positive rates by week to the actual antibody testing in the same weeks. Because the antibody test will tell you, did you get the antibodies to COVID? And only 14% had actual antibodies among those PCR positive cases. It may even be up to 90% weren't even real infections. So now that this fraud is confirmed, again, people have to be held accountable. All the people that lost their jobs, that were forced to take these injections based on this fear campaign, was all based on this false test, this fraudulent test.
That's Dr. Nick Fulcher. This is not Dave vonKleist saying it. For all you folks out there that want to demonetize and deplatform and censor and put strikes against your account, no, you can't bottle up the truth. You can't. You can try. I mean, what happens when you take a pressure cooker and you stick it on the stove and you close all the valves? Yeah, eventually it's going to explode. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The more that the powers that be try to censor everybody, and not just on this issue, but on many, many, many other issues, the more you try to clamp down on the truth, the more powerful it becomes, and eventually it will explode in your face. So I just wanted to throw that out there because the hits are going to keep on coming. Absolutely. So you just heard Dr. Kary Mullis about the PCR test, how it was used fraudulently by Tony Fauci and others. And now you've heard from Dr. Nick Fulcher on the same topic, that test was used to fraudulently promote the pandemic that they had. And by the way, I'll get to that in a couple seconds here. The emergency use authorization had to do with the suppression of medications that were on the record for being available to treat. But we'll get to that in a couple of seconds. As a matter of fact, let me see. Let's continue on with Dr. Nick Fulcher, and because he's going to be talking about the fenbendazole, the membendazole, and the ivermectin. And by the way, he was a guest on with Jimmy Dore, and here's an excerpt from when Nick Hulcher was on with Jimmy Dore.
Human observational study on ivermectin and mebendazole in cancer. We had like 200 cancer patients. And what we found was after 6 months, 84.4% of them reported to have benefited in their cancer treatments. About half, either their cancers disappeared, they had no evidence of disease, or their tumors shrank. And again, that is half of this entire cohort.
So I actually went and looked up this study, and there it is. Real-world clinical outcomes of ivermectin and mebendazole on cancer patients, results from a prospective observational cohort. Okay? Tell me what this says.
After the 6 months of taking the ivermectin and mebendazole, 32.8% declared that their cancers disappeared. They had what's called no evidence of disease. 15.6% reported that their tumors were shrinking. It's called regression. And then 36% said their cancers were not progressing. So that's called cancer stabilization. And that makes up the 84.4% clinical benefit ratio. In other words, 84.4% of the cancer patients who took ivermectin and mebendazole benefited in their cancer treatment.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Fembendazole, mebendazole, and ivermectin, they all have very positive outcomes for those who use those particular medications. So why were these medications being demonized, ridiculed? Why did you have your talking heads on the late night TV talking about horse goo and horse paste? And you can't take that. That's for veterinarians, give that to horses and dogs. You don't want to take that stuff. So why did they have to destroy the idea that taking ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or fembendazole, why did they do it? Maybe RFK Jr. has the answer. Here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this particular topic.
CNN thing where they made my face yellow.
Yeah, he was talking with Joe Rogan. Anyway, so here's RFK Jr. with Joe Rogan.
And said I was taking horse medication, which is that to say that and to repeat that over and over again is such a clear indication that they conspired. It's such it's uniform. It's horse dewormer, uniform. A medication that's used far more often on human beings. It's been prescribed for
billions.
Yeah, it's insane. And the fact
and won the Nobel Prize for efficacy in humans.
Yeah. So ivermectin won the Nobel Prize for use in humans, but they didn't want you to know that. No. That's because the media are liars. They're paid off whores for pharmaceutical companies. Anyway, let's carry on.
In humans.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was just wild.
They had to do it. They had to discredit ivermectin. Because, because there's a federal law, the emergency use authorization statute says that you cannot issue an emergency use authorization to a vaccine if there is an existing medication that has been approved for any purpose that is demonstrated effective against the target illness. So they had to destroy ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and discredit it, and they had to tell everybody it's not effective, because if they had acknowledged that it's effective in anybody, the whole $200 billion vaccine enterprise would have collapsed.
Wow. Okay, now let that settle in, folks. Let that settle in. They had to lie in order to get the emergency use authorization approval. And as a result, millions and millions and millions of people were directly affected. Many of them died. Many of them lost their homes, their families, their businesses. And it created divisions between families and political groups, etc., etc. These lies completely destroyed our economy, and they completely destroyed America's belief and faith in the pharmaceutical companies. So there's your lies for you. So, do you understand the gravity, the insane level of, I don't know, I can't even find the word. How could anybody do this and have a clear conscience? I can't grope that. I can't. And many, many other doctors have been screaming about this, and like I said, Nick Hulcher, Peter McCullough. I got a clip here from Peter McCullough. He's talking about ivermectin. A lot of these doctors are coming forward and screaming about this from the top of their lungs, and the mainstream media and the press has been suppressing them and doing everything they can to keep that information from getting out because they work for Big Pharma. If you don't believe me, watch one of your alphabet news networks and make note of their commercials. You will find that over half of their commercials are pumping some pill or some treatment because that's where their money is. That's why you get nothing but pharma ads on the mainstream networks. And I'm sorry for those of you who say, well, I don't watch the ABC, NBC, CBS. No. I watch Newsmax. Well, guess what? You're getting the same BS from Newsmax. And you're getting the same BS from One America News Network. And the same BS from Real America's Voice. You're not getting the truth. The truth is never easy to find. So if it's never easy to find, how easy is it to sit on your butt and channel surf through the news networks? I'll tell you a network that doesn't have pharmaceutical ads. Al Jazeera. Yeah, you should be checking out Al Jazeera. You want to hear about the other side of the story when it comes to world events? Tune into Al Jazeera. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. Dr. Peter McCullough on ivermectin.
Ivermectin is working through a whole series of other mechanisms. But, remember when people have cancer, and anybody listening to this knows about this, the cancer chemotherapy is typical multiple different drugs because you have to hit cancer in many ways. With ivermectin and benzol, there's probably at least 6 different ways cancer cells are hit. And when you have that much medicinal force against a cancer cell, chances are the cancer cell will give up, or the body's immune system will step in and start to clear it out. Remember, cancer is always at war with our own immune system.
All right, so here's the million-dollar question. People discover they have a cancer situation, like 1 in 3 I'm looking at here. Is there a preemptive benefit to this in order to protect you from getting it? Is there any?
It's possible. That wasn't studied. There are many medicinal and culinary herbs, believe it or not, natural products that probably are preventive.
For instance, when you're talking.
A good one is curcumin, derived from turmeric. The data are amazing.
Get out.
Do you know the Indian Asian societies that use a lot of this, they have statistically lower rates of certain cancer.
Come on.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, we're finding out now that ivermectin, fembendazole, membendazole, and hydroxychloroquine, all of these medications that have been demonized, well, it's not just because they could combat the hokey-pokey thingy-dingy reason that they were having the hokey-pokey thingy-dingy. No, it's because it actually fights cancer. Whoa. That's a whole different can of worms, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, and as this information is getting around the world, more and more people are having regrets for having not only taken the hokey-pokey thingy-dingy, but having to have promoted the hokey-pokey thingy-dingy. As a matter of fact, over across the pond, the National Health Institute, the NHS, National Health Service, over there across the pond in Great Britain, yeah, guess what? Listen to this.
Doctors and nurses.
Yeah, who'd have thought it? So the NHS has a vaccine problem. Staff don't want the jab. So doctors, nurses and other frontline NHS staff are shunning the flu vaccine. So this is the flu vaccine, not the coronavirus vaccine, in ever greater numbers, with almost 9 in 10 staff at one of England's largest hospital trusts unvaccinated last winter. Oh, I wonder what changed in the last 5 years to make people suspicious of vaccines.
I wonder. And again, this was reported on GB News, GreatBritainNews.com. So now health providers are refusing not just the COVID vaccine, but all vaccines. Like I said, what's happened over the past 5 years has totally destroyed the confidence in our global medical system. And, well, they should be destroyed because they did everything that they could to deceive you and to make money. That is their goal. That's their bottom line. The bottom line is the bottom line. All right, so let's see. Shall we move on to, there's another doctor, Dr. Kelly Victory, and she was talking about the polio vaccine. Now, this is something I know a little bit about because when I was with Joyce and we were investigating a lot of these health modalities, we found out that, polio was on the decline and was almost completely eradicated. It wasn't even around. And then they introduced a polio vaccine, and guess what? It went back up. Here's Dr. Kelly Victory on that particular topic.
Part of this is based on the fact that fundamentally, you and I were lied to during medical school. What we were taught about vaccines simply isn't the case. I, for one, was taught, and I'm sure you were as well, for example, that it was the polio vaccine that is responsible for having ended the scourge of polio in this country. That simply isn't the case. You need to look, if you look at the timeline of polio cases, they had clearly dropped to very, very low, and severe illness from polio had almost bottomed out to zero prior to the vaccine ever being launched.
Okay, you hear that? Polio had dropped down to almost zero prior to the release of the polio vaccine. And by the way, again, this is Dr. Kelly Victory, and she was being interviewed by Dr. Drew on his podcast called Ask. I'll let her continue.
This is similar with measles. The trajectory, the timelines don't match up with what we were taught. Now, because of the blanket liability immunity that is enjoyed by the vaccine manufacturers ever since 1986, we have burgeoned the vaccine load from the 6 to 8 that I got when I was growing up, that you got when you were growing up, from birth to age 18, to where we are now at 85 shots between birth and age 18. And I'm here to tell you, as a physician, the human immune system was never intended to be flogged like that over and over and over again with an immune challenge, which is what a vaccine is. It simply causes, it is wreaking havoc with our God-given immune systems. So rather than thinking you are just one vaccine away from good health, if we could just come up with one more vaccine, it'll all be good. That simply isn't the case. And we should be far more, circumspect about the way we approach vaccinology. Which ones do we really need? And which ones do we say, you know what? Average healthy people will do just fine.
Interesting. And what was it last week? I was covering this issue about the measles. Of course, the mainstream media is trying to pump up, there's an outbreak of measles. Everybody's got to get their MMR, get the vaccine. Well, 50 years ago, there was a show called The Brady Bunch, and I played the clip, and it's caused quite a bit of controversy. Because when I was a kid, there were certain childhood diseases that we could all expect to get. One of them was measles. And you know what? Back in the 50s and 60s, measles was common. As a matter of fact, when some kid came down with measles, they would have a measles party and have a bunch of the other kids in the neighborhood come and hang out, and they'd play, and they'd all come down with measles to get it out of their system. Yeah, that's the way it was a half a century ago. But that was before somebody figured out that they could capitalize on that, make a snot ton of money by promoting fear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, fear is control. All right, coming up, it is the bottom of the hour. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to change gears a little bit. Just a little bit. I'll be right back.
Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula is used by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now the Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers. Hey, if you got an engine, then Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, plumbers, painters, and lawn service companies, Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your big rig around the town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack on sale at GetMoreTank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code REDPILL101 and get 10% off. Save your money, save your engine, save the earth at GetMoreTank.com. Get More Tank is EPA registered, doesn't void warranties, results vary.
And as always, if you would like to experiment with your vehicle and get more tank, it's no experiment, folks. This is proven science. It actually works. So go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, click on the sponsors page, and then there's a window for Get More Tank. When you click on that, it'll take you to an area you can read all the specifications and details about how and why this fuel catalyst works so well. You get, for $20 when you use the promo code, you get 5 tablets. Now, on the first application, you put 2 tablets in your tank and fill it up. After that, it's 1 tablet per tank. So if you spend $20 and you get 5 tablets, first off, you're going to notice that your car has more power. You'll notice that within the first tank. When you hit the accelerator, you're going to go. Oh, I wasn't used to that. And then you're going to notice that your engine runs cleaner, it's running more efficiently, and that's good for the environment. But the moneymaker here is after a few tanks, you'll start to see that fuel mileage increase. Your engine will adjust to the new way it's been functioning, and you will see anywhere between 15 and 20% increase in your mileage. Do the math. You spend $20, you get 5 tablets. If you're getting 20% better mileage, that means the 5th tank is free. Do the math, folks. This doesn't make sense not to use Get More Tank. Go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, click on the sponsors page, and get more tank. All right, it's 32 minutes past the hour, whatever hour you're sitting in. And yes, the phone lines are open. If you have something that you want to contribute, you're welcome to do so. But I still got a ton of stuff I've got to get to. The number here is 215-867-8255. Again, that's 215-867-8255. Okay, I'm playing a lot of clips here from doctors, physicians, scientists, and a lot of them have suffered all kinds of consequences for telling the truth. As they say, no good deeds go unpunished. Well, now, guess what? The wall is cracking. The dam is collapsing. The truth is getting out there. And no matter how many censors there are, no matter how many people are out there trying to, like I said, deplatform or whatever, they will not stop the information from getting out. It ain't gonna happen. So, okay, now we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. as we speak. The Supreme Court is considering legislation here that would basically hold Monsanto and Beyer immune from any future lawsuits from exposure to glyphosate. Now, glyphosate is illegal in Europe. But here in the United States, just spray it on everything. It just goes on all of the crops just before they're harvested. Now, why is that a bad thing? Well, we're finding out. Anyway, right off the bat, here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. discussing the situation with glyphosate. And go ahead.
Was a desiccant. So that, and what that means, if you spray it on a crop, it will actually dry out the crop. And one of the big enemies of the farmer is that if there's rain around the time of harvest, their crops can get wet, and then they get moldy, and then it ruins the entire silo.
Yeah.
And so what Monsanto did is they began telling farmers, spray this on the crop, on your wheat, right before harvest or at the time of harvest. And it was so popular that about 85% of the Roundup that has been used in history has been used since 2006.
Wow.
And a large part of that is as a desiccant. And what that meant, Mark, is for the first time they're spraying it on food.
Yeah.
Right at harvest.
Yeah.
And for the first
time. Not early in the season when it
right.
may have a chance to wash off, but actually just before you're going to eat it.
Right. And they're spraying it for the first time on wheat because there was no such thing as Roundup Ready wheat.
Yeah.
They started spraying it on wheat as a desiccant. And so 2006 marks the date when suddenly these gluten allergies began exploding. The celiac disease and all these kind of wheat problems that we started seeing in this country. If you measure back and say, when did it start? You can look and draw a red line, and it's 2006, and it's the year that they began spraying it on
your wheat. Oh, yeah, the best customer is a repeat customer. You've heard that before. So that was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. discussing the controversy about glyphosate. Well, Nick Holcher's been bellying up to the audio bar, and basically he's been saying the same thing. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that here. Okay, that was the wrong link. Okay, let's see. Where is it? I just had it here. Okay, I know what I did. All right, never mind that. I'll go back to the next thing. All right, so let's see here. We have, like I said, they're having big demonstrations outside of the Supreme Court building. One of the speakers there is Vani Hari, Vanihari. And she was speaking outside of the Supreme Court yesterday, and this is what she said. If I can get this mouse to work there.
And let's be very clear. You cannot claim to care about health while protecting poison. You cannot tell Americans to eat real food while protecting the cancer-causing chemicals sprayed on it. You cannot stand with families and side with one of the most evil corporations in the world. Let's be honest. We wouldn't be here right now if President Trump didn't sign that executive order.
Ooh.
We wouldn't be here right now if they weren't inside this building arguing on Monsanto's behalf. We wouldn't be here right now if they didn't submit that amicus brief and that recommendation to the Supreme Court to look at this case when they've lost all over this country. You cannot stand with families and do that. We would not be here right now if Monsanto, Bayer wasn't pushing legal shields through every branch of government, including the Farm Bill today at Congress. They made this their moment. Now we make it ours.
Atta girl. Yeah, I'm on board 100% with them. Yeah, we've been screaming about glyphosate and Monsanto and Beyer for decades. They do not care about your health. They do not care. They benefit from your illness. It's done on purpose. Let's see. Here's some more information. This comes from Mike Adams, a health ranger, I believe it is. Okay, yeah, from Mike Adams. Here we go.
50 years ago, Monsanto invented something that would change the world forever.
Roundup. No root, no weed, no problem.
But Roundup was more than just a good weed killer.
We've been using the weed killer for decades, but now it's at the center of a $1 billion health scandal.
Did Roundup weed killer cause a man to get cancer?
There's many, many diseases that are linked to glyphosate exposure.
My doctor, he goes, I think this is all due to Roundup.
What made Roundup so effective was the chemical glyphosate, that thanks to Monsanto has become the most popular pesticide in the world, and now one that's linked to cancer.
My patient's dying just so their shareholders can make a few more bucks, just so their CEO can get a bonus.
Despite its links to cancer, Roundup is still a $1 billion business. So how exactly did Monsanto pull this off?
There was an intentional effort to deceive that took place over many, many decades.
And now Monsanto has a new owner, a $1 billion pharmaceutical firm. And together, they're working on a way to keep selling Roundup, no matter the cost.
Yeah, I'm going to pause that. This is a 15-minute documentary that was basically exposing Roundup and the development of glyphosate and how it has pretty much permeated our entire food industry here in the United States. But as I mentioned, it is illegal over in Europe. I think maybe they're a little bit smarter than we are. Anyway, Thomas Massey, also on the steps of the Supreme Court yesterday, talking about the same issue. Here he is.
In the Farm Bill, I'm still trying to get out of it. Was successful in getting this out of prior bills is immunity for a German company called Beyer that makes glyphosate. This is not to grant farmers immunity. This is to grant the corporation immunity if they give farmers contract a form of cancer or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from this chemical. If this makes it into the Farm Bill, you won't be able to sue for that. And I know they're dealing with some similar legislation at the state level.
Okay, so they're basically trying to make them immune from prosecution. Surprise, surprise. They're following in the footsteps of Big Pharma. They got the same benefit, didn't they? Yeah. Anyway, so the debate goes on. Here's Representative Shelley Pingree, again, on the steps of the Capitol, screaming about glyphosate. Here she is.
Thank you. Well, I'm very proud to be here with my colleague from Kentucky, Thomas Massey, and to be co-sponsoring this important amendment. But let's just say it. We are all here today because we believe no corporation should be able to poison people and then run for protection to the Supreme Court and Congress. And we know that's exactly what Beyer is trying to do. They have 53 well-paid lobbyists and are spending millions of dollars lobbying Congress. And that is not to make their products safer. No, it's to protect themselves. They care about their corporate bottom line, and that is it. If their product makes you sick, they don't want to pay up, and they don't want to take responsibility. So we have to fight like hell to keep that from happening. And that is why we're all here. Thank you to everybody who has been joining that fight. They have the money, but we have the people, and we can win. Last December, I fought to remove a similar protection that was in the appropriations bill. And thank you to your phone calls and your emails and your messages in contacting Congress. We won. But of course, Beyer's back. This time with the full-throated support of the Trump administration at the Supreme Court. This administration, unfortunately, has supported this appeal at the Supreme Court, and they even went so far to invoke the Defense Production Act to boost production of glyphosate. And right now, the other fight we're in today is that Beyer got Republicans to jam this liability shield into the Farm Bill. And I fought that in our committee to get that language removed. And once again, every single Republican and one Democrat on the House committee voted to keep it in. But no Republican or Democrat can tell you that if they support Make America Healthy Again, they vote for chemicals at the same time. They do not care for the health of our kids or the health of our farmers. This should not be a partisan issue, and I have been so proud to work with so many of the speakers and the advocates and the leaders here today. Thank you, Kelly, Bonnie, Zen, everyone who's here today. You're doing amazing work, and everyone who's showed up today is incredible.
Okay, I'm going to pause it for a second because she's pointing out that this is a nonpartisan issue. There are Republicans and Democrats all standing shoulder to shoulder to fight this particular legislation to grant immunity to Beyer and Monsanto. So here. Thank you for putting your differences aside. And I don't know what it's going to take to get Americans to understand that the powers that be want to kill you. I don't know how to sugarcoat that. They want you dead. It's part of their globalist agenda is to drastically reduce the world population by any and all means necessary. And as an aside, I do want to point out that this issue about the Epstein files, again, I will stand by that. If we can bring all of these monsters to justice who have been involved in any of this sex trafficking, torturing, murdering, bloodletting, cannibalizing children, if we can bring all of them into the light, all of them, every damn one of them, and I mean that specifically because they are damned. If we can shed light on that, I promise you, all of the rest of the corruption will fall into place. Because there's a force behind this evil that people don't like to talk about. We are in a spiritual battle, and more people are starting to realize that. And there's no gray area. There's no fence to stand on. You're either standing in the light or you're hiding in the darkness. And that's where we're at, folks. Anyway, I'll let her continue. I just had to throw that in there. Release the damn Epstein files.
As you've heard so many people say, we don't have to agree on everything, but we are on the same side when it fighting for people over poisons. And I just want you to know, I have been in these fights for a very long time. Long before there was a MAHA movement, and I am so excited to have the cavalry coming in today and joining this fight. I have been an organic farmer in Maine since the 1970s.
Wow.
And no one can tell me or the other farmers here today that we can't grow food without all of these toxic chemicals. For me, this lifelong fight has been to make sure that everyone has access to healthy food without toxic chemicals, and every farmer has the resources that they need to farm organically and regeneratively. Cancer is not partisan.
That's right. Cancer's not partisan. Okay, she goes on for another couple of minutes there, so I'm going to leave her with that. But, yeah, this is an issue that involves everybody. I don't care. If you eat, then it involves you. You know, it's just crazy. Let me see. What else have I got here on the issue of Monsanto? Oh, yeah, Alex Clark. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are bellying up to the bar here and screaming about this. Here's Alex Clark.
We are asking one simple question. Why does Beyer deserve protection, but American families and farmers don't? A country that can't protect its children from corporate poison is not a free country, it's a captured one.
Whoa, that's a good point.
In the land of the free, we're told that we have choices about our health. Which doctor to see, which sunscreen to buy, and even whether or not to vaccinate. But when it comes to carcinogenic pesticides, the government tells us you don't have a choice. You will eat it, you will drink it, you will breathe it. They tell us to eat healthy while the fruit and vegetables that we can afford are sprayed with glyphosate that we cannot wash off. They tell us to get our kids off of screens, so we take them to parks treated with Roundup, where children roll in grass soaked in chemicals that are linked to cancer. And years later, when that child is diagnosed with unexplained infertility, or her father hears the words non-Hodgkin lymphoma, the same system that exposed them says, "Sorry, you can't sue, but at least your yard looks nice."
Ooh.
A government that shields chemical companies instead of children has forgotten who it works for. If your product is safe, you don't need immunity. If your product is harmless, you don't spend billions settling cancer lawsuits.
By the way, $7.3 billion has been paid out by Monsanto for those lawsuits. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
If your business model depends on sick kids and silenced farmers, you don't deserve a liability shield. You deserve prison.
Bam! Okay, I'll go right along with that 100%. Yeah, so the battle rages, okay? So I would suggest that you call your congressman, call your senator, have a voice, scream about it, let them know how you feel. Because it's your children's children's children who will look back at this time and they will either bless you or they will curse you. Bless you for your activism or curse you for your apathy. That's where we're at. Okay, going to change the gears again. Okay, there's a lot that's coming out now over in Iran. Now, of course, we've been hearing about all of a sudden it's raining over in Iran. They haven't been getting hardly any rain for the past decade. They've been suffering from absolutely horrific drought, and all of a sudden it's raining. Now, what happened in the past month that all of a sudden would break the drought? Well, it just so happens, and I mentioned this yesterday, that after the hostilities were initiated over there in Iran, Iran responded by hitting the U.S. bases. Okay? And these U.S. bases had huge radar, NORAD systems in place. And since they took out all these radar installations, well, what do you know? The drought ended. So people are putting the puzzle pieces together. Now, yeah, you're being okay, and I want to clear something up. People say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy." Well, yeah, it is a conspiracy, but the two words that go together are conspiracy theory. Okay, the concept of a conspiracy could be a theory, but once it's proven, it's no longer a theory. It is a conspiracy. So a lot of people have that backwards. Just make sure you use those words correctly. But anyway, George Galloway was talking about this exact situation, what's happened with the weather patterns over there in Iran, and what could possibly have returned the rain to the region. Here's George Galloway.
Rivers, lakes, gigantic floods are now raging in not just Iran, but in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, in Iraq. Rivers that have never flowed for centuries are now brimful of water. It is snowing in Iran. For the first time in very many years, Iran had the drought that you described and was on the point of considering the evacuation of the capital, Tehran, because of a critical water shortage. And now there's water everywhere and plenty of drops to drink. And the argument that it was the destruction of the U.S. radar facilities in the United Arab Emirates that has, if you'll forgive the pun, turned the tide, and the tide is now taken at its flux, is solving the water problem of the Persian Gulf, hopefully forever, is demonstrably proof that weather has been weaponized, that weather has been deployed as a weapon of war, as an act of war, causing untold harm, suffering, drought, and bad harvests, and all of the consequences. We can...
Okay. So the question is, if this is indeed factual, if the taking out of those radar facilities was, as a result, was to release all of the moisture, this indicates that maybe it was being used to withhold the moisture. And if that's the case, if they do have an ability to steer weather patterns, then we have to start taking a look at all the other crazy weather patterns that have been going on. Remember the big hurricane, what was it, a year ago, that came up and went way inland into western North Carolina, wiped out that entire region? Yeah. How did that happen? Why did it happen? And it just so happens that there were, all of these mineral deposits in the area. Yeah. Quartz and lithium. Yeah. Oh, and then there was the floods in Texas. Remember, that wiped out that entire area and that campground, and all those girls went missing? And then there's the big rains in Chicago and in New Mexico and in California. Now, we have to ask the question. By the way, there's a woman by the name of Adriana Masters, I think it is. And all she does is monitor the weather patterns and the radar arrays, the NORAD transmissions. And it just so happens that there is a connection. So is this all conspiracy theory? Is it theory, or is it conspiracy? Think outside the cage, folks. We have to start, really, really contemplating and reevaluating what we've been told, because we've been lied to about everything. Absolutely everything. So, anyway, let's see. We got, about 5 minutes left. Boy, the time goes by so quickly. All right, let's see. Here's in Colorado, Let's see, which bill is this? I can't see the number here. HB House Bill 25-1312. It went up for a vote in Colorado. What is this bill? Well, let's listen to the vote, and I'll tell you what it is.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1312. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. Now, I don't know how you can determine from a voice vote who the ayes are and who the nays are. Let's listen. What do you think? Do you think the ayes had it or the nays had it? Listen.
All those opposed say no.
Okay, that sounded pretty much equal. That would warrant a hand count, wouldn't you think? Instead of just yay and nay or aye and no, whatever. Yeah, I think that they should have had a hand count, but they didn't do that. By the way, what is this bill? Well, this bill classifies, quote, misgendering, unquote. If you misgender your own child, it will now be seen as child abuse. And if you are guilty of child abuse, you lose custody of your child if you don't affirm your child's chosen gender. Let that settle in, folks. And why was there just a voice vote? This stuff is, it's I don't know, it's just demonic. It is so evil, so absolutely evil. All right, let's see what else is on my on my list here. Let's see, where is it here? Oh, yeah. Chris Hedges, he was speaking out against the Israel lobby. And a lot of people now are finally waking up to the undue influence that Israel has over our entire government. Not just our government, but over Big Pharma, over the media, over Big Agra. Israel has taken over this country. And Chris Hedges, let me remind you, he was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer for the New York Times. He's won all kinds of awards. And this is what he had to say about the Israel lobby. You might want to listen.
Legalized bribery, which defines our electoral system. So corporations do the same thing the Israel lobby does, which is buy off politicians. And if you don't do the bidding of corporations, if you don't do the bidding of the Israel lobby, then they spend millions of dollars to unseat you, to defeat you. And that is the driving engine behind the power of the Israel lobby. It doesn't matter which party. Biden, in fact, took more money, I think, from AIPAC than any other sitting senator, and Biden hasn't been in the Senate for over a decade. So it's money. So Kamala Harris runs for president. 77% of registered Democrats want to cut arms shipments to Israel. It doesn't make any difference. Most Americans want the predatory nature of big banks and corporations across the political spectrum curbed. It doesn't make any difference. Most people don't want endless war. It doesn't make any difference. And so the Israel lobby has learned how to play that game very effectively, but I wouldn't call it blackmail. Israel does use blackmail.
Oh, yeah.
All security services use blackmail, but I don't think they're controlling the political system through blackmail. I would agree with Norm on that.
Okay, maybe it's not blackmail. Could be one of the other two words. Bribery.
Coercion. Blackmail.
Okay, well, I don't know if he's correct about blackmail not being part of the equation. Epstein files, yeah. But bribery, certainly. Absolutely. Now, what has that got to do with the rest of this broadcast? Talking about Monsanto, talking about Big Pharma, talking about the jab? Well, you need look no further than the movers, the shakers, the policymakers in those huge corporate firms and figure out what party they belong to, what country they have allegiance to. It's not hard to figure out, folks. Got to think outside of the cage. And like I said, they can do everything that they can to suppress the truth, but that's like closing all the valves on the pressure cooker. Eventually, it's going to explode.
We can't wait for you to start to get honest.
I'm not holding my breath.
We can't wait for you to start to be true.
I'm not waiting.
We can't wait for you to finally discover
that the things they did can be done to you. All right, enough of that. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this Tuesday installment of the WTF Reports. If you're listening on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, or Facebook, please remember to click like, share, subscribe, make a comment, and above all else, spread the word. Word of mouth is the best advertising. And also, I humbly request that you go to our website, TheWTFReports.com. Do business with our sponsors. You can even make a donation to our GoFundMe, help expand the broadcast, etc., etc. All right, that said, that's going to wrap it up for the Tuesday edition. God willing, I'll be back tomorrow with more of the news they hope and pray you never hear. I'm Dave vonKleist. These are the WTF Reports. God bless you all. Stay safe, stay free, and I'll see you tomorrow.